Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy and welcome back to Retro Reviews. Today, we've finally made it back to the 90s with this one. We are talking about Face Off, which is the 1997 action film directed by John Woo, starring the one and only John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. So today, I am John Travolta, George is Nicolas Cage. I was actually looking at how the faces are in here. Maybe we should zoom our cameras in and try and match the nose. Let's not do that. But yeah, this is, of course, retro reviews where we pretty much have carte blanche. We can pick any film that we want to talk about. It can be an older film. It can be a really older film. We've kind of been staying around the 80s or 90s with the last few retro reviews that we've done. And I guess this one is sort of kickstarting our own little mini trilogy that we've got going on for the next few weeks, where we are going to be looking at 90s action films. And there's a lot of good ones that I haven't seen. This one was a film that I hadn't seen. So this was a blast going through this one today. We're going to be talking this one. We're going to be going into spoilers and everything like that. And I think it'll be a really good conversation because this film is nuts and we're going to be talking about it. But before we do, just over to George with the socials.
Absolutely. I should have done the intro and pretend I'm you and you could have been me. Because actually, we've done that before. We did that. Yeah. What did we do that in? We did that in Memento. We did the review backwards. Go check out our Memento video. That was amazing. But unfortunately, this wasn't to be. No, we want you guys to comment your thoughts on Face Off. Anything about the classic film, thoughts on it, spoilers, favorite moments. Which out of the two was more insane than the other? That's not better. Who was more insane? It's like a constant war between the pair. So comment below all your thoughts on Face Off, and if you want to catch our videos when we've got stuff going up, because we've got a lot of things coming on the way. We're on daily content now. We've reached that insane moment, first time since Christmas, and we're already on it. So you want to find out what videos are coming up, when they are. Some make them very last minute. You can get us on Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com to Cinema Savvy, and we have a link to the TeePublic store below. However, we aren't here to talk that. We are here to talk Face Off, and we normally start with the memories watching this, and this is your first viewing of this film, which is I'm not going to lie, it's nice to be on the other end of it. And this was a weird one for me because I saw this one years ago, and it was. I think you'd have had the same face as me when you're at college or something. I basically say on every retro review, it's like, it'd be a Thursday night. I'm at my friends having a drink and stuff, and there was always like a classic 80s or 90s film on. And I remember one of them was Face Off, and I'd never seen it. And oh my God, you've never seen Face Off? You've got to watch it. And I was sold literally on the opening credits, which are worthy of their own discussion point. But no, this was one of the films. I thought I owned it. I woke up this morning, it's like, fucking hell, I don't own this film. Like, what happened? Like, I thought I had it. I've got all the other ones we're going to be doing this month, but not this one. So, obviously, I just got it off iTunes. It was easy to do stream. It's the TV. I was not prepared for it to be 2 hours 20. I do not remember that part of it. Very tolerant of films, but as you guys can tell on the channel, there's a lot of videos being done right now. There is we have a calendar. But I don't know if you're the same. I now have my own schedule within my own notes for being at home, and it's become this monstrosity. And what a relief! I love my mom. Back to that insane 90s. John Travolta being weird, Nicolas Cage being weird. What better duo can you have for a film this ridiculous as an insight? It's all on them. It's bloody wonderful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wasn't prepared. I knew this film's reputation. I knew the heights that Nicolas Cage went to in this film, and to some extent Travolta as well. We'll talk about the individual performances in a minute, but I wasn't prepared for how ridiculous this film was. I think that's what shocked me the most. This was a film where, granted, as we've already mentioned, this was my first time watching it today. It was, of course, one of those films among many other films that I still need to get round to. Oh my God, you've never watched Face Off. It was always this one from the 90s, was always this action film. How can you call yourself a Nicolas Cage fan if you haven't seen Face Off? It's like, fair point. And then as you go through the years, more and more films come at you left, right, and center. And then sadly, Face Off kind of falls into obscurity in the background. You never get round to it until today. It was a film that I pretty much saw more or less the entirety of throughout memes. I'm sure everyone's seen the famous Nicolas Cage ones. I even uploaded some today on the socials just for good measure because they're worthy of being shared. It's always nice when you finally get to see a film or a TV show or whatever it is where all the memes have come from and you finally have context for those memes. So I got that today with this film. But I remember when we were sort of planning ahead to what our next few retro reviews were going to be. And by the way, I will say for people watching, stick around till the end because we are going to be announcing next week's as well. And yeah, due to all the things that we are watching currently on the channel, you even showed me a handwritten schedule of things that you had to get watched over the weekend, and it was insane. It was almost like a month's worth of stuff all condensed into like one weekend that you've got to get watched. We said, let's go for something nice. Let's go for something like 90 minutes tops. So I was shocked today when you were like, oh yeah, Face Off's 2 hours, 20 minutes, throwing ourselves right in at the deep end again. But my overall opinions on this film, I loved it. I had a really, really great time with this film. Now, if you do any reading on Wikipedia, I'm not going to read the entire thing. You guys can go onto there, but there's this whole laundry list of everything saying, like, at the time it was critical acclaim, praise for its acting and its deep emotional storytelling moments and its stunt work and its music. And you read something like that and you think like, oh my God, this is going to be like a groundbreaking, one of the greatest films of all time kind of thing. And maybe it is the greatest film of all time in some people's lists, but this is through and through a guilty pleasure movie. This is, even like to some ones that we've reviewed in the past, like Commando or something that's really tongue-in-cheek and over the top and ridiculous, but you love it because of that. That's the 90s equivalent of that for me. It's so over top. The concept is so ridiculous. Yes, it's original. It is an original concept. I'll give them that. But all the actors, not obviously like the main focal points, Travolta and Nicolas Cage, but every actor in this film is trying to overact each other and try and one-up each other. To the point of ridiculousness. But we don't actually have a plan for this one today. This is just going to be an open discussion today. But yeah, sort of like my overall opinions. I'm glad I finally watched it. It serves as a great action film, but what makes this for me, and we'll probably get into this now, are the two lead performances, because how do you even start to talk about Travolta and Nicolas Cage in this film?
I think you have to go for let's go the hero first, right?
Okay.
I'd say hero. Then again, it's the other expensive. Let's just talk the opening scene, because those credits hit, and I was like, you know how we were laughing when we were watching Commando? It's like, oh my God, It's the really weird sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger being a father thing. And obviously, I've only seen this one once before and forgot bits of it. And it's when you get the face, like the three hands going down everyone's faces and the merry-go-round, the black and white filters because it's a credit scene, and Nicolas Cage with a mustache. That moment has everything. And then it's dark because they headshot a kid. They headshot like a 4-year-old boy. And to be fair, as ridiculous as it is, that is a very powerful way to get this film started. To make it clear, this film is John Travolta versus Nicolas Cage. You set all of that up. You have Nicolas Cage, the villain, John Travolta, the dad that's seen his son be murdered and survived to tell the tale. And I think that's a very smart point. But it's set to, we have like an opening 25-minute action sequence, which for most films would probably be like fortunate to be the finale. Mm-hmm. But it's the bloody opening scene, which is insane. But let's talk John Travolta, because yes, his character is technically his character is technically Nicolas Cage, but let's say the hero of the story, John Travolta's character, he's obviously a man struggling at home. He's just basically made this villain his life's work, and it's such a simple premise for both things: evil man, good guy. And it's the fact they have to. He's been on this manhunt for so long to switch the heads. I can't talk about this film, but I'm not confusing myself. But it's literally they're like, I'm talking about John Travolta, but he's the villain for most of the film. And I hate but love films that do that, because he's amazing at being a creepy bad guy, and he's amazing at being a creepy father. And that's the core of it. He is just insanity from start to end with him.
Well, I mean, he's Travolta, right? Like, he's just the guy in real life is just creepy as hell anyway. But when we talked about Commando, this is a really good segue, actually, because I teased before who the original two actors were going to be for this film before it fell through. And then
Stallone and Schwarzenegger.
Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger were originally going to be the two leads. Could you imagine that film? I want that film. That should be the sequel. They can still do it. You know, part of us doing this as well is because fairly recently it's been announced they're going to do a Face Off 2. Whether it's going to be an all-out sequel, whether it's going to bring Travolta and Nicolas... Well, actually, no, he can't, can he? Because he died. Maybe he survived. This film's ridiculous enough. Maybe they can bring him back from the dead. Who knows? But yeah, just seeing that. 1997, it would have been Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's incredible. But we still have two incredible leads anyway. I in a parallel universe, I want to see that.
I'm watching that film in my head. Who'd have been the hero? Who'd have been the good character? Probably Arnie, right?
Oh my God!
Because then he's got to play the villain for technically most of the film.
I think Stallone plays a better family man than Schwarzenegger does. But who knows? But that final fight, that whole, can you imagine that speedboat chase? Anyway, we're not reviewing that film. We're reviewing the face-off that we got given. Both actors are so great in this film. Now, I love Travolta as well. We need to think of like Travolta's career as well at this point, because the guy did Saturday Night Fever, which was a fantastic film. I'd love to talk about that film at some point as well. Really good film. And then after that, the guy did Grease and Saturday Night Fever. And then after that, he kind of faded into obscurity. And it wasn't until Pulp Fiction rejuvenated his career and he came back. So this would have been, I think Pulp Fiction was 1992, I want to say. Was it 92, 91?
Or 94, I think.
Oh, was it 94? Oh, okay. So this followed 3 years after them. But Travolta can turn in a fantastic action lead performance. I've seen him in some later action films he did. The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 remake by Tony Scott, he was amazing in that, equally as over the top in that film. And then I think right after that film, he followed it up with not a great film, but sort of like a so bad it's good action film, From Russia with Love. I remember seeing the poster for that. He was like bald-headed. He had a goatee beard. Completely nonsense. But what's so great about these both performances is that obviously they're fantastic in their own right as the actual characters that they are, but they're great at mimicking the other actor that they're replicating. I would say that I think Travolta plays a better Nicolas Cage than Nicolas Cage plays Travolta. Travolta's got all the mannerisms down of Nicolas Cage, the way that he talks, like the kind of way that he throws his head around, the physicality, because that must be really tough to do. Not only have you got to play your own character within the film, but you've also got to emulate the actor and their mannerisms and tropes that you're up against. So it must be really tough. So fair play to them.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point, because I think as far as Travolta goes, it's obvious, once he wakes up, okay, he's clearly going to get the other face, and that's why we have this sort of saga. But he is very good at those mannerisms. I think with Nicolas Cage, this is kind of off topic, but there's an amazing YouTube video that I saw many years ago before Face Off, and it was like Nicolas Cage like losing his shit. I think that's the title. I don't know if it's still on YouTube. And it was just like every insane Nicolas Cage moment across like 20, 30 years. And I always remember the fuck you in the mirrors. Never had a clue this was in this film. So the first ever time I saw this film, I was like, oh my God, it's the meme. You've got the church stuff, you've got everything. But I think Travolta is the better of the two in terms of, as you said, the mannerisms becoming that other character. And I think, I'm not saying he's more recognizable, because we have seen Travolta in weird roles. To the Nicolas Cage side of it, this is like, if you're going to bring aliens to Earth and say, I've heard of this being, the Nicolas Cage, show me what he's about. This is the film you put on for them. You don't put on anything else. You don't put on, Kick-Ass, all this stuff. You have to put this film on. And I think Travolta's excellent at doing that other side of it. And when the two of them have scenes with each other, they're great as well. But it's it's that kind of 90s, it's trying to be gritty, but the 80s, 80s sort of is still in there, kind of that sort of one-man war machine, that star power, the insanity over the top. But the 90s tried to ground all of that, but it still existed. It just wasn't as open in being like that. That's how I feel about a lot of 90s action films, and certainly this one is that on a mindset by itself. If neither of you do, sorry, I've got to bring this up to the face. We've been doing this before the stream. It's stuck in my head now, the three things, and it's a very weird. It reminds me. I don't think they're doing Planet of the Apes. I think they do that to the paws, don't they, when they like pour each other.
Well, I guess you could say Force Awakens, that stormtrooper at the beginning of with the blood.
Maybe that was John Travolta's secret cameo we didn't know about. No, performance-wise, it's so hard to separate them because they're both doing so well at playing that other person. And I think they each do enough to make it their own, but it makes it harder to speak about it because they're not playing that character, they're playing the other one, and that other one's fictional regardless. But it's just insanity. And what I like about it is it's not trying to be too serious. We were joking around before about the sequel. Imagine like a deep, depressing Nolan film. The fact that John Woo's so open in how ridiculous this film is. You'll mention the dubs because I know you love that stuff as well, and I'm not the biggest fan of Mission Impossible 2, but John Woo just embraces it. Now, I don't know how far into production it came. Was it an idea before he came on board? Was he originally looking at sort of Stallone and Schwarzenegger? I don't know, but these two guys, come on. I mean, could you imagine all like the tests between them, like before filming, like the chemistry with them? They absolutely nailed it. But he allows that to happen, and he makes it so ridiculous where it's almost like he's being encouraged. The opening scene, the Hallelujah, when he's dancing, when he's singing, the face.
He's doing like the shimmy. He's doing like this whole like head thing. He's doing, yeah.
It is just amazing. I don't think there's a single. I don't want to say there's a single bad thing about this film, because there are issues with the film. Don't get me wrong, but this is the ultimate. Let's have, it's the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme, isn't it? It's the beer. At the end of it, they're just sitting watching TV with a beer. This is one of those films. I always call them the Thursday night films. This is one where you want to watch with your mates. It's a ridiculous experience, but it's phenomenal, and it comes down to the duo. And again, John Woo lets this happen. He builds this up, and I feel as if those set pieces are also designed around these actors too. And that sounds a bit strange that we've not seen many of them do insane action before, but every time they do have an action scene, it feels like it's the right sort of orientation of how that character would be too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what makes it great as well with these two actors is that you already have two actors that can do over the top and do over the top fantastically well. But it feels like they're at a constant state of competition within the film as actors trying to overact each other, which is great to watch, because when it gets to points of ridiculousness, and oh boy, does this film get there, it's just great to watch. But yeah, so I was just having a look, because when you mentioned where the idea for this came from, apparently this was like a spec script that was floated around since like 1990, like really early 1990. And it was like passed around from studio to studio, eventually getting picked up and John Woo coming on board to direct. John Woo, so he followed this film up with Mission Impossible 2, which I love. Mission Impossible 2. It is the most un-Mission Impossible film out of all of them. And it is through and through a John Woo film. And this film especially has all of the tropes of one of his films. You've got people with two guns jumping through the air in slow motion and firing them. You've got constant slow motion in the film. You've got a flock of doves that fly artistically past a church or past the screen during a gunfight. You even get that in Mission Impossible 2 as well for some reason. It just adds to, well, I mean, it's his style, granted, but because I'm so aware of those tropes, it was just hilarious to watch, because it's like, why are these doves here? Because it looks cinematic and looks artistic. It's ridiculous. Now, this was like a spec script. This was written, so obviously the jokes in there and the way that the characters talk would have been inherently funny, and the humor within the script, but there are moments where it does try to go into that drama and try to have those heartfelt moments. You talked about like the opening credits scene, which was, I was laughing. It was laughable. Yeah, it's not funny what's happening, but how it's handled and just so how dramatic it's trying to be. It's that like Shakespeare argument you always talk about with like Vin Diesel. It feels like it is trying to be this deep, dramatic, emotional piece. But when you break it down to the sum of its parts, it's fucking nonsense. And I think that's what makes it work, because it is trying ham-fistedly to be a serious thing. I don't know if I'm off base on that. I don't know if it was intended to be like a serious, emotional, evocative piece, because there are scenes of emotion where you've got Travolta in the disguise of Nicolas Cage, where he's trying to reconnect with his wife and they're crying and it's meant to be emotional. There's sort of the very final scene of the film. I know this is like spoilers, but jump into the end of the film where they adopt Nicolas Cage's son at the end, and it's all this lovely, picturesque rainbows and butterflies, happy ending, and it feels like nonsense, but it feels like it's done with an agenda to try and have a semblance of seriousness to it. It's difficult to explain. I don't know if you got that from it as well.
No, I know, I get that as well. And that's the thing. I don't want to go in on John Woo. I'm not sure about the writing, but I think the reason this script floated around for so long is quite clear that it's a ridiculous premise. And, you know, it's if you're an agent or something or a producer, like, do I want to invest a lot of money into this really expensive, insane film where people literally, and for the 90s as well, swapping faces? Mm-hmm. What a throwback of all those sort of computer screens with like the green lasers, like that sort of pre-Matrix computer stuff. Mm-hmm. It's kind of not insane, but there's a reason this wasn't picked up. Now, obviously, I should have done my research. You know, did he have the idea and say, you know, I read the scripts, I'm thinking of these actors? Or do you think John Woo was saying, I need to find actors to do this? But it felt like, by not saying it, the best films are films that are written around actors. Not saying this hasn't, but there just happened to be the two guys on this planet you'd probably want to do this. And what's been kind of amazing, not sort of changing subject, but me and both sort of chat like, who would we want to do in the sequel? And there's not the fact that we don't want it or not whatnot, but I'm sure there'll be people out there, but it's the fact that these two guys are so intrinsic to this working. You have to think, who can be this insanely over the top, taking this seriously whilst not taking it seriously, that can have these weird mannerisms and this freakish stuff? Because when the time comes for the sequel, I know it's off topic, but it's going to be, the whole film, it lives and dies at who they cast. That's the basis of it. If you're going to turn around and say it's going to be like, I don't know, Eddie Redmayne and Benedict Cumberbatch, like, no, thank you very much. Whereas, if it turns out to be like two people we can't even think of, but when they announce his name, it's going to be like, I see it, and I'll be down for that. So it's interesting what could happen in the future, but the standards are so high because of how insane the pair are together. I think that's why, as you said, the action scenes, the boat at the end, every action scene is like 5 minutes longer than it needs to be, and that's why it's 2 hours 20. The amazing shootout at the church, which is basically shot in slow motion, with someone literally falling down like Jesus, I think, as well.
I say that adds to the runtime, all the goddamn slow-mo in this film. Take out the slow-mo and play it at normal speed, you probably got like an hour and a half movie. But
yeah, and then I'm going to bring up a comment as well from Dave as well. He gets creepy with his daughter after the face swap. It kind of reminds me, I don't want to compare this to Heat, but with Heat, like, here's the subplot for the main actor, and it's about his sort of stepdaughter that's struggling. This has that with his entire family. Like, it's this subplot that's meant to build them up, but it just seems funny and kind of creepy with the daughter. But everything with the wife is just amazing. I don't know. It's so ridiculous. I don't think John Woo took this seriously in a lovely way. I don't think he sat there and says, I'm going to make this Oscar-winning drama about face technology. He just went in like, this is going to be batshit insane. The only other guy I could think of that could direct this is probably Michael Bay, in truth.
Oh, I don't know. See, no, because I think that would go off the deep end. I think he'd go too far with that in that respect. In terms of the action, definitely. Oh my God, yeah, no, I mean, he could definitely do the action in that respect, and especially action that goes on for way too longer than it actually needs to be. But this was, I was just reading here, this was the first Hollywood film in which John Woo was given major creative control. So maybe that stands to why it is so ridiculous if he was sort of given free reign with the film. That I'm just going to bring up that comment again. The biggest takeaway is as well, and she doesn't seem too concerned by it. Yeah, I was kind of getting that with the film as well. There were moments where she was kind of like, she was almost receptive to his advances, which was really creepy. That's going to be a lot of therapy for her after this film. I mean, her dad basically licked all the way up her face, and then her real dad comes home, and you've got to deal with that. So, I mean, maybe that's in the sequel. Who knows? Who knows? But I did want to talk about the action, because the action is astounding in this film. It really is. Now, true, you do have your gunfights and your weirdly edited sequences in the church and everything, but my God, that boat chase at the end, even now, astounding. Now, the stunt work, obviously, I think someone mentioned on Twitter earlier that they don't hide the stuntmen's faces at all. That they are clearly not Travolta and Nicolas Cage in those moments, but fair play to, stuntmen. They don't get enough credit for their films, but when people are dangling off the side of speedboats in this film, and that they're really doing it, and there's people there, and there's a tangibility there, you've got speedboats crashing through other boats, and it's so over the top, but it's incredible. But that it was all filmed in camera, so fair play to the direction there. It's shot well as well. The camera pulls back, you can take in the spectacle of it all. I loved that whole ending sequence. That was probably like my favorite, other than like the random character outbursts throughout the film. That was probably my favorite scene within the film.
I love the ending. I do like the opening chase, though. The helicopter on the plane. It feels like, and this is probably one of the reasons you got not James Bond, you got Mission Impossible, but it feels like that sort of James Bond vibe film. Like, how over the top can we go that one man can save the day? Like landing the helicopter on the tail of the plane so it can't take off. That's as insane as it's going to get, and that's your opening 20 minutes. And then there's the fight on the docks, and there's like an engine jet that pushes him into a wall that puts him on the cone. Everything's so insane. I loved the opening act, and I think jumping off those credit scenes, it is very much just one man versus another man, and they have to build up. So I'm glad that we don't get deep inspective into other characters, that there are other supporting characters, You know, you've got some of John Travolta's work colleagues. One of them, the head of the FBI, miraculously killed by an elbow that no one would clock that he went in that office and never came out. All that ridiculous stuff over the top. I'm glad it's minor, because you don't want this film to deviate away from the two. Now, I'm not going to pretend it, but I've got a feeling that almost every scene in this film has at least one of the two of them. We don't get scenes of just the daughter and wife by themselves elsewhere. I think that all of these two guys are in pretty much every scene. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the reason why it works, is that when you have these sort of character pieces, you know, I always think of Joker. I think Joker's in all but one scene in his film. And it's about who carries that film. These two guys carry it, and you need them. If one's not in one scene, they've got to be in the other. And I think that's why it nails it, because you spend so much time with them. You kind of forget that one's meant to be evil. You just kind of love both of them. And whenever they're going to come together, you know it's going to be these ridiculous moments, these insane standoffs where more and more people just start turning up out the blue, and it gets weirder and weirder and funnier. But I think that's what you live for. And I think the action benefits from that as well. The Hall of Mirrors, and they start trying to headshot each other through the mirror as well, and they're both fine. It's so ridiculous. It's amazing.
Well, it's trying to be artsy and all of that, isn't it? Oh, let's get a mirror images of each other. We're not so different, you and I. And it's like, you kind of are. But what I liked as well, sort of like the last point before I get onto the soundtrack, I did actually like the supporting characters in there and what they were trying to do with the film, because in a weird way, with the role reversals of the characters in the film, they actually kind of help out in each other's, well, in the opposite person's personal lives, which I thought was quite an interesting angle to go with. So you've got Travolta, who in his normal life, you know, his marriage is kind of failing because he is so wrapped up by, you know, the loss of his son, and chasing kind of like that Heat thing again, like Al Pacino's character in that, where he's just dedicated his life to tracking down the bad guy, and he's kind of neglecting his family and his wife, and his marriage is falling apart, and they're not as close, and his daughter as well. But when Nicolas Cage is in the home, he rekindles the fire with the wife, and, you know, he's much more, you know, throwing more advances towards her. He's sticking up for the daughter. He's showing her more attention, probably more attention than she needs in that way. But he's there. And then on the flip side, with Travolta in the disguise of Nicolas Cage, he kind of helps Nicolas Cage's old flame find closure to that relationship, and is there as like a father figure for the son as well. So it's weird how when they're both in the opposite person's shoes, they are kind of like helping each person's situation, if you know what I mean. It's very difficult to talk about this film with the role reversal of the characters. It's like, how do you describe them? You say John Travolta, which one do you mean? But hopefully people understand what I was saying just there.
And what's amazing is that we can't even remember the character names. Like, they're irrelevant. It's John Travolta and Cage. Like, I kept forgetting every time I go to bring them up. I was like,
So we've got Sean Archer and Castor Troy. What's actually pretty cool, I kind of, part of my brain caught this, but I couldn't remember where they were. Nicolas Cage and his brother in it, they're called Castor Troy and Pollux. Now, Castor and Pollux are in Greek mythology. They were twins. I mean, of course, right? They were twins, and Zeus turned them into Gemini. Now, Gemini, is that the one with like the two faces back to back, or is that, I'm thinking of something else? I think.
Oh no, I think it is Gemini. No, I think it is.
Or is that Janus? I can't remember. It's Greek mythology anyway. Not that you need to know. They've just threw it in there to be artsy, probably. But yeah, you go by the star power, don't you, rather than the characters' names? We're always like that. You go to a Schwarzenegger or Stallone film, and other than Rocky, and other than the Terminator, you pretty much just refer to them by the actor's name, right?
Yeah, any of these guys in either film they're in, the pair of them, they've reached that point. You know, John Travolta in Grease, John Travolta in this, John Travolta in that, Nicolas Cage in Kick-Ass, Nicolas Cage as the Ghost Rider. It is these two guys, and I think that's why it intrinsically works. If you're like a character actor, I don't think it'd work. If you had this method actor, certainly couldn't work. But the fact that you've got these two elongated, over-the-top, polite messes just makes this film what it is, and that's why it stands out compared to anything else. Because so many directors and actors could try this, and it's going to fail. That's why it's a sort of, I don't know if it's not a final thought, but a closing point, that sequel, you know, if you cast two ridiculous people, I'm in. But the like of you know, getting this to work twice, not an easy thing to do at all.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I'll say is the music in there. John Powell, most recently, probably more notable for his animated film soundtracks. I think he did the music to Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon. He helped out on the first two Kung Fu Panda films with Hans Zimmer. There were moments I was listening to this soundtrack and it sounded like a Zimmer score or like a Klaus Badelt score. It felt very much like in that kind of vein. So I don't know if he was one of those proteges of Hans Zimmer around this time, or there seems to be loads of composers where you read about them, it says they've had some kind of affiliation with Zimmer. But I think this was actually his first film score. I think before this point he'd done like a short stint of TV. This was his first film score. I really like the music to this film. It does have like a main theme that goes throughout it, but yeah, just making a mention on the music. But final thoughts for me on this film. There really isn't all that much to say. I did have a great time with it though, but it's, my God, this film was everything I wanted it to be and more. The performance, you go into this for the performances and how ridiculous and over the top they are. The action scenes are fantastic. They're shot well, like well choreographed. The stunt work is phenomenal, but it's a film that is trying so desperately hard, it feels, to be dramatic, which makes it all the more funny when you do have the likes of these two guys in the film trying to outmatch each other and outact each other. It's wonderful. So I can finally cross this film off the Nicolas Cage films that I need to watch. The guy's kind of become a walking, living meme at this point. It seems like he'll do anything for $1 in terms of the films that he's had coming out over lockdown. So yeah, I think the only other like big 90s Nicolas Cage film that I probably need to watch at some point is Con Air now. It was always this, in the same breath. It was always, oh my God, you haven't seen Face Off. Oh my God, you haven't seen Con Air. And they were always the two. I saw that he was in The Rock as well, which came out before this, a year before this film. I think that was a Michael Bay film, wasn't it? I haven't seen that one.
Rock is phenomenal. Yeah. Maybe we should turn this to not Christopher Nolan. Let's turn this to Nicolas Cage.
Why not?
His 90s action films are incredible. The sad irony is that I've never seen the film he won his Oscar for. I think it was
Leaving Las Vegas.
Yes. Yeah, it was Leaving Las Vegas. Yeah. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Is that when he plays a vampire or something?
No. He's an alcoholic. He's trying to kill himself by drinking booze. And oh God, I think she's in it as well from Karate Kid. Ali. I forgot the name.
Oh, Elizabeth Shue.
Elizabeth Shue. Yeah, she's in it. She's really good.
There's so many great Nicolas Cage 90s action films. John Travolta's a weird one. I don't think you get him as much, but he just sporadically pops up every few years. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like, that's what John Travolta's always been for me. You always think of Pulp Fiction, Grease are the big two for me. But when you see films like this, it's kind of like you wish he'd done more. And I will say about Nicolas Cage, a really good film I didn't see, which was really hyped up. I want to say it's recent. It's 2018. It's called Mandy. Everyone was making that was going to be his big comeback film. And unfortunately, nothing else has materialized since. So fingers crossed, maybe he'll crop up in a... Well, as you said, we don't know he can, unless we didn't see what happened to the remains of his face. So maybe the new villain will don the Nicolas Cage aging face. Who knows? But I'm very curious. But kind of as my final thoughts, it was amazing to just revisit this film. Something that's not so serious. Something you can chill out, have a laugh with, enjoy the action. Just sit back, let it come into you. Don't go into it expecting The Godfather. Don't go into it expecting something completely awful. You're there to be entertained, and this film is going to entertain. So do go out and find the time to watch this. It is amazing. And sorry, Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. That was the last great Nicolas Cage film I saw. Amazing.
Oh, God, Noir. Yeah, of course. Jeez, yeah. Spider-Man Noir, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I said Black Noir. No, that's not. That's The Boys. Yeah, you are at Spider-Man Noir. Yes, that's everything I think I can say on this one. Sorry.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's hand it over to everyone else now. So please do comment below with your thoughts on Face Off. Let us know what you think of it. And I guess because we have been talking about the sequel as well and sort of like guessing who could be in it, let us know your main two who should be in the sequel, not counting Travolta and Nicolas Cage. Give us two new actors that you think would work well off each other for the sequel. Because it's I don't envy that casting director at all for that film, but anything you like related to Face Off, any of these guys' films or any other 90s action films, please do let us know. Sure to like, comment, share, subscribe as well. Before we go through everything else that we've got coming up on the channel, I think we should announce what we're doing next week. Now, I think it's probably too late in the game right now to decide that all of a sudden we're doing a Nicolas Cage month, because things that would be great. Maybe we'll get to that again at another point. This will be like a nice little introduction to it. But of course, we are sticking with the 90s. We are going to another 90s action film, going a few years before this one at this point. We're going to be talking about Point Break, the 1991 classic with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. It is a film I've only seen once many years ago, and I'm going to have to refresh my mind on that. So that'll be a really fun one to talk about. So that'll be next Tuesday, 16th of March at exactly the same time, 8 p.m. GMT. We'll be talking all things Point Break. What else have we got coming out on the channel? Well, we have a lot of stuff coming out on the channel. We, of course, this Thursday, 2 days' time, have the Cinema Savvy Awards. We continue that. It's every Thursday at 8 p.m. And this week's category, we sort of pick our own picks, our own nominees, and then we have a short discussion about our favorite winners in given Oscar categories. All of our own original picks. This week is going to be Best Original Score and Best Original Song. So it's all things to do with music in cinema this week. That's going to be a really fun one. So that's this Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT. The next thing we have coming out in a few weeks' time is we're going to be back on Disney Plus discussions. We have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier spoiler reviews. We just got done with WandaVision. Everyone's still talking WandaVision. We absolutely had an amazing time watching that series week to week. And we've got another one coming out. So we'll be, oh my God, 19th of March. I was waiting for the little scroller to go past so I could see when the date was. We have so many things coming out, guys. It's very, very difficult to keep track. But I'm going to pass over to George now to talk about the other Marvel content that we have ongoing on the channel at the moment.
Yes, we are knee-deep into the Infinity Saga retrospective series. This is a insane, I didn't even want to call it a collaboration. It kind of is. It's basically, we're talking Marvel every couple of days. We're looking at a retrospective on the Infinity Saga, starting at Iron Man, ending at Spider-Man Far From Home, unfortunately. It's myself as host. Each episode I bring on different people, recurring people. So we are up to Thor. We've had the first 4 done. Captain America will be premiering tomorrow night. That's Chris joining me on that one. And we've got Theo, who's on the Incredible Hulk. So come join us for that. But I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's checked out. We've got a lot more social media stuff coming our way through to that. So we think you guys like Marvel. So we've tainted you with Face Off this one time. But if you think we're a Marvel channel, then we'll just pretend we are, because we've got so much Marvel stuff coming out. But Captain America 2. And before Point Break next week, there was a Point Break reference in which Marvel film? The Avengers. The Avengers will be going out on Saturday as well. That was not an intentional timing thing, but it's just happened, and that's something I needed to bring up. So I'm excited to start releasing them. We're pretty far ahead in terms of recording. I don't mind telling you guys, we've recorded Guardians of the Galaxy. We're almost halfway through, so there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, a lot of planning, a lot of new people on the channel, existing people on the channel, people we've brought back that haven't been on for a while. So it's been a really fun series so far, but as we kind of joked, we're almost at daily content now. It's getting pretty insane. It's getting great. And this Friday, technically morning, Thursday night, keep your eyes peeled at midnight for a big Netflix series review, which is all I can say right now. So if you like F1, there's your hints. Well, yeah, there's too much. And more Marvel. There's going to be a special Marvel video this Friday because, you know, three Marvel shows isn't enough a week. We're doing a 4th one to fill the Friday night gap in between. So I don't mind saying what that is. That's going to be me, Chris, and Dave. We're just going to be discussing 5 Marvel TV shows we want to see made for Disney Plus. So it's going to be a discussion-based one, nothing too competitive. But, you know, that Friday slot's pretty unique now, and I'm quite excited to delve into that TV. So I think everyone's loved WandaVision, and it's kind of what shows can you announce next? So but we're gonna maybe point some ideas for Disney's direction.
Definitely. Guys, get us on our social media. It's the easiest way to keep track of everything we've got coming out. So we've got Facebook at Cinema Savvy. We've got Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. You can find a list of everything that we've reviewed and continue to review on Letterboxd. That's letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. And if you'd like to pick up any merch, we've got a TeePublic link in the description down below with a few t-shirt designs on there for you to have a look and hopefully buy one. So that'll do it from us. This has been really fun talking about Face Off. Once again, a big thank you to everyone that's been commenting along. And obviously, please do continue to comment along. We reply to everyone's comments, and we will see you guys on the next video. Take care, everyone.